Hi there. People are asking a little bit about what inspired me to do the series Ask God. So this is a little bit of an interview. Um, I'm Lee Freeman. I write and perform Ask God. Um, I'm originally from Shoreham-by-Sea, which is a little place in Sussex. Got a harbour there and a nice church. Well, a few nice churches and in St Mary de Hora for a long time, as well as a Baptist church there when I was a lot younger. I've lived up here in Seaham, which is near Sunderland, for about 11 to 12 years now. Um, I'm a team manager at a call centre, which might surprise you, or not surprise you if you've watched any of the episodes, because I get a lot of inspiration from being there. I was an agent on the phones for a long time, and then was a trainer, and now I'm a team manager there basically. I'm also qualified as a teacher, and I was in the forces for a while when I was quite a bit younger. So what inspired me to create Ask God? Well, I wrote a short story called God's Holiday, and someone posted a comment on it saying that I domesticated God, um, which got me thinking. Wasn't too sure how to take it. Then I wrote another sketch after watching a Rowan Atkinson um, comedy thing where he basically portrays the devil, and I think it's called Welcome to Hell or something like that. And so I wrote this sketch called Welcome to Heaven, which is like a direct answer or opposite to what Rowan Atkinson had done. And from this, I started to form an idea, and then I thought about making it educational. Um, so those few ideas came together and formed what is now essentially Ask God. Um, who are my inspirations? I'm into anything pretty much spiritual. I'm a Christian, um, albeit maybe not a typical one. I'm a bit of a fan of the mystics, um, and I like to research stuff within the faith and other faiths. Anything within the religious sphere of things is my interest. Is my main sort of hobby, really, aside from doing a bit of music now and again and watching TV, um, things like that. So with the comedy, because growing up I watched an awful lot of comedy with my dad in particular. Um, Not the 9 o'clock news, Monty Python and the Two Ronnies, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, Ben Elton, Rick Mayall, Adrian Edmondson, and then we got Arthur Matthews and Graham Linehan, I think his name is, and Fry and Laurie. Absolutely love Fry and Laurie when I was growing up. Of course, Hugh Laurie's more of an actor now. He did House for a long time, didn't he? And Armando Iannucci as well, Steve Coogan, Alexei Sale. Um, Alexei Sale can be particularly funny. I remember watching a sketch of his years ago, which really tickled me. Basically, it's got God headquarters or something like that on the door, and Alexei comes out, just sort of prancing around in this really weird and peculiar manner, and then these two people standing on the side of the road going, "Who's that thing?" And the other one says, "Oh, that's God moving in a mysterious way." Um, and some people think that's daft, but I like daft just as much as I like intellectual, well, what purports to be an intellectual comedy, like and the Pythons and stuff like that. Very much a fan of Frasier. Um, that incorporated intelligence with slapstick. Um, so I really enjoyed Frasier. Um, and my friend Greg, he once said to me that I'd studied comedy, and I didn't think I had. But I think he might have been right, really, because when you think about it, there's funny voices and funny facial expressions, way things can be said, and then obviously there's the comedic situations. So it's knowing how to blend all these things. It does take a bit of practice because, especially with something like Ask God, the potential to offend people is quite high. So I aim to be witty, educational, but inoffensive, basically. So why ask God? Well, there's films and series like Bruce Almighty, Evan Almighty, The Advocate, Dogma, Michael. Then there's things like the Omen films, isn't there? And the Seventh Day. Things that focus on people in relation to the God or devil. Um, but I wanted to do something that focused on God, and it made me think about the character of God. Should God be in corporeal form? Now, for me as a Christian, I understand that in the concept of Christ, and Jesus. However, not everyone does, and my outlook on my own faith, as well as others, is that there's a lot of similarities. So I try to just create a character of God. I don't think I'm God or anything like that. Far from it. I'm far too flawed. Um, but I wanted to create this character that is or could be God in human form. Um, so I suppose it was the Rowan Atkinson thing that really sort of took my interest when he did The Devil. And then I started thinking about how I was going to do it. And at first, it was just going to be an interview and like a series of sketches, like Welcome to Heaven. Um, then there's God's Holiday, and then have an interview with God, and then start thinking about the two Ronnies and how Ronnie Corbett used to sit down and do these soliloquies. Yes, I talk all like that, and get a bit distracted and come back on track. And that greatly inspired me. And I'm a big fan of David Rennick's comedy. He did a very famous character a good few years ago now called Victor Meldrew. So there's elements of that in there. And then there was the time when I also was privy to watching something that the Dalai Lama was involved with. And people often pander to him because of his sort of status and things like that, being the religious leader of his country. But on this one occasion, he was a little short and sharp, blunt, with someone who came up to him and was pestering him. Immediately afterwards, he realised what he'd done and was very compassionate, held their hands, and as if to say, "I'm sorry," basically. But it made me realise that Dalai Lama is human just as anyone else. And of course, this idea that I was having of God being in human form, aside from Christ, it all sort of came about, and it's all sort of floating around in my mind, and came up with this idea of God being like you and I, and living in this realm. So this room I'm in now, which is basically my bedroom, is Bliss HQ, and it's the corporeal headquarters of Bliss. And the premise for Ask God is basically that heaven's a bit outdated, and they need to modernise things. And where I work in this call centre, we often have to what we call add value, as well as promote certain things within a sphere of our work, and manage these statistics and stuff like that. And so blending all that in. So the idea came about of doing Ask God question and answer sessions. You ask God a question, he answers it basically. And then we got the incentive thing that comes through in Ask God. There's often these incentives, and they have to add value through the shows and mention all the marketing stuff. So consequently, it's great annoyance to me at work because it means you've got to hit certain statistics all the time. But I made light of it in the program by yes, you guessed, Janice from marketing is on to me again. We've got a latest incentive, and so that's how that bit came about, which I thought was quite a good idea actually, because of the fact of if everything was domesticated and in this realm, and you could perceive it and look at it, what would bliss be like? It would be a great corporation that would be storming away, and through through the market basically, and trying to pioneer things a bit way like a bit of a way like most other faiths do things, and you know so that's how that whole idea came about. People ask me who is my audience. My audience is family oriented basically. I don't use bad language. I'm not a huge fan of bad language. I try to lead by example with that. More than anything else, it's alright saying, "Oh, can you not swear, please, because of blah blah blah." But I find people don't pay much attention if that is the case. So I tend and try my hardest to lead by example. Then there's the message, albeit a very subtle one, which is basically, be good and treat others as you expect others to treat you. Um, and forgiveness, self-forgiveness, peace, um, love thy neighbour, all that sort of thing really, which I explore through the program, especially with like the questions and answers. One of my favourite bits when I look back through is when an archdeacon is looking for inspiration, and the person who's standing in the wings um, basically says something along the lines of, do not covet thy neighbour's ass. And God turns to us, that's very specific, isn't it? Who's your neighbour? And the person standing in the wings says Balaam. And if you don't know, in the Bible, Balaam got apprehended basically by this talking donkey. And so it's a bit like that. So you can bring across a message about not being jealous and things by giving it comic effect. And then the punchline to all that was God turns to the camera and goes, "Well, I know what I'm getting them for Christmas, really, don't I?" So it's little things like that. That's one of my favourite bits, where it's getting a message across. But to me, that is quite funny. And generally speaking, the comedy I like is funny. I've got a huge range of inspiration from those who have done comedy before me. Also, what helped is that on my team, one of my advisors, he's the call center version of David Mitchell, and I like David Mitchell. I think he's really funny and very intelligent guy, as well as very plain speaking. And this lad on my team, he's very much like that. And it's like when he's on a call, he's doing all the right things. He's calm as anything, and he's helpful. And then if you were to see him off the phone, you'd be like, "Well, that was a load of. They expect me to be able to do that." And he sounds just like David Mitchell when he does it. And so all these things sort of permeate through into the writing of it. It might surprise you to know that a lot of this is improvised. I write down the basic ideas of what I want to get across, and then basically improvise. And might spoil something here, but there's actually no one else around when I'm doing them. I normally turn to a point and I focus on a point on the wall when I'm thinking I'm talking to someone else. It's just imaginary, and there's no one else there. Doesn't mean to say that I wouldn't include other people in the article. When I was younger, I used to practice improvisation comedy a heck of a lot. Myself, Daniel, and Jason in particular. We did countless episodes of something called Newsflash. It never really got anywhere. We did send it off to places, but not many people were really interested. I think it's probably because we were quite adolescent with our comedy, and even though we thought we was funny, and I did get some interest from Big Train when that was on TV a few years back, and they showed some interest with that, and but it didn't quite happen. And yeah, I've always written comedy. I also like performing music as well. Um, bit of a secret performer, really, a secret actor. I often put on like a performance. Again, it's like Greg has said. Basically, my friend, my very good friend, he says, no, no, no. He says, you studied comedy, and I said, no, I haven't. It turns out I probably have. So sometimes you know how well I know how to say or do something for comic effect, which can help lighten situations quite a bit, I find. That's a bit about myself and a bit about why I am doing the Ask God. Um, there's going to be a slightly different version of it coming out as well, which is like 60-second snippets, where it's like, quick welcome, question, answer, and then um, finish basically. And so I'm aiming it for a particular market. Um, it's being very specific. It's got its own format. Um, whether it gets accepted or not is another thing, but I am doing that as a visual thing at the minute. It might turn out to be something that's better for radio. We'll have to wait and see with that. But slowly and surely, people are getting into Ask God, and it's out there on YouTube. Sound like Ask God character now, don't they? Yeah. So we've got the Facebook page, which is God of Bliss HQ. We've also got the YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing to that. We do have the YouTube channel. There's over 3 hours worth of Ask God on YouTube. Then there's the Facebook page, as I have mentioned, which is just simply Ask God. And Facebook page hasn't taken off as much yet, but regarding the actual videos, they are taken off, which is the main thing. Just generate more interest in this, because it is very specific, and I suppose it's knowing your market, really, isn't it? And that's why these 60-second bits are coming in, because that is aimed specifically for a particular market. So I hope that's been of help to you. I hope you found it interesting. It's a bit about me, a bit about Ask God. It is created here in my humble dwelling in County Durham. Peace be with you, and thanks for taking the time to watch Ask God. Thanks very much.